think I might get around it. I think I might get around it. I don't. I hit it. 2020 has been a very, very strange year, but plenty of great things have come out of it. I've been told that the best thing to happen to me in the year 2020 is the birth of my daughter, who's now almost 10 months old, and obviously that is correct. But the other very best thing for me to come out of 2020 has been Car Trek. I mean, there's really nothing better than the chance to go out and play Top Gear with your best friends, and we're having the time of our lives, and we just finished Car Trek 3. It's running right now on Freddie's channel, so go over to Tavarish after this video, and please watch the latest episode. There will be 5 released the week of Christmas. And again, that was our 3rd series, and all of them have been made possible by AutoTempest. So if you haven't already heard of AutoTempest, AutoTempest is a way that you can search for cars more powerfully and more intelligently than ever before. They allow you to search all the major listing sites at the same time and find the car that you're looking for. And so we try to create a set of challenges that shows off our ability to buy the best or the worst cars that are available on AutoTempest. But after the first 2 series, which were really, supercars for the price of a Corvette and the most appreciated supercars, we wanted to do something that came in at kind of a lower price point. Cars that we could have a little bit more crazy fun in, potentially hurt, and just do different types of things than we could do in an Aston Martin or a Lamborghini. And so this idea of finding the most unreliable cars on earth, or the most reliable cars on earth at a low budget, and doing it Secret Santa style as a Christmas special sort of came up between us and AutoTempest and everything else. And so we went out to this castle in St. Mary, Missouri, and we bought each other cars. And I bought for Tyler an Audi S8 with the Lamborghini V10. Tons of problems already known about, tons more that developed. Tyler bought for Freddie a Rolls-Royce Silver Spur from 1986. Absolute biohazard piece of garbage. Clearly the worst car to actually put a mile on. And Freddie, for me, bought a 2005 Quattroporte. Now, this was the second Maserati ever used in Car Trek. In Car Trek 2, Freddie insisted on buying a Maserati Coupe GT that I had found that was a manual transmission car. He wanted it even before it showed up, so when it went to his shop near Orlando, he was a little bit shocked at how terrible the condition was with 120 some odd thousand miles, and definitely a difficult pass, but he loved the car. And that's ended up going through Tyler to another YouTuber, and he's making videos with it, so that car continues to live. But I had said a lot of very disparaging things about Maserati owners, and so it was only fitting that Freddie buys for me under $10,000 budget, in fact for $7,500, a 2005 Neiman Marcus edition Bordeaux Ponte Vecchio Maserati Quattroporte. So this was sold one of 60 cars out of the 2004 Neiman Marcus Christmas catalog, in the same way that they had sold a Vanquish Volante and a McLaren MP412C, a BMW M6, all the way back to, I think it was a Ferrari FF, maybe even a gold-plated DeLorean. Lots of crazy things sold out of the Neiman Marcus catalog. The main theme of these cars obviously being catastrophic depreciation. And so this car that I think would have sold for about 125 to 135 grand when new was now $7,500. And honestly, it was pretty much fully functional. It had maybe 75,000 miles, maybe 125,000 miles, but regardless, it was generally a pretty functional car. And I know that because we had the wizard check the car out on the second day. And that was a very fateful day in this Maserati's life. So we're developing a set of challenges for each of these premises. And in this one, we were gonna test our unreliable cars. The first day, we had set up kind of a rally stage on the 106-acre grounds of this twin turret castle in St. Mary, Missouri. And so we'd rented it off Airbnb, and it had all these dirt and gravel roads. And so what we were gonna do was a timed run around some of the roads, looping around a tree, going around some corners, sliding where we could, and then ending up at the front of the castle. So it was going to be a very, very fun way to start off episode 1, but we have no idea how any of this is going to go. As we talked about before, when Top Gear does these challenges, they're pretty well scripted. Everybody knows what's going to happen, and generally the cars are set up to break in predictable ways so that they're never surprised when a car breaks. It all just sort of happens. Now, we don't have the budget or the time, or honestly the engineering ability to plan any of that. We each do our runs, and It was the rolls barely making it down, except for an absolutely spectacular jump. And then the Audi doing a pretty tidy run, and me sliding the Maserati around as much as I possibly can, which actually wasn't that hard because of the car's long wheelbase and real manual transmission. I mean, it's a Duo Select sequential paddle shift transmission that is terrible, but for that use, it actually works quite well. Very low grip surface. The car, we're not going really, really fast, and it's pretty easy to kick out and make for some good shots. But of course, we're trying to capture a mile and a half long run with these cars, and we don't have enough camera people to cover the whole thing. So we put GoPros on and we run down, and we have an audio guy in kind of capturing our audio of what it was really like the first time we did this. But then of course we have to do pickup shots at some of the particular corners and the turns and things where we want to make sure that we have a better shot than we could have achieved through that. We want some external shots and stuff like that. So they got drones up and people at corners and hiding behind trees and whatnot. But of course we have to redo parts of it to make it work. The first day took forever, honestly. I mean, we got some great stuff. I love the way it came out, and that's legitimately how it looked and went. But we wanted, for the sake of the edit, to have some better shots. And so the plan had been, on day 2, we go and do the wizard inspections at Aging Wheels shop, and he tells us how much it would cost to make our cars right, not tells us everything wrong with them. So that was kind of a different twist on what we've done previously with mechanics telling us what was wrong with the cars. And again, that was a lot of fun. And of course, they find out that the cars are really, really in terrible shape. But honestly, the Maserati was certainly the best of the bunch. The Audi was totally broken, the Rolls even more so, but the Maserati was a functional car. It was beeping a dozen different errors, and it wasn't really driving that great, but again, it was the most functional of the cars. And so we go back, and the plan for that afternoon is to do some more pickup shots with whatever daylight we have left to get some better slides around the turns and a better jump for all the cars except the Rolls-Royce. And in fact, I think the jump we ended up using in the final cut was also the Rolls on the same day. So Freddie goes first over this jump and sends it super, super hard. Gets the thing all 4 wheels off the ground clearly, and really lands hard. And of course, on that soft suspension, which was already leaking mineral oil all over the place, he digs in really, really hard and builds kind of like a berm at our landing zone. And this was not a manufactured jump. This was literally a bump on the driveway of this castle. And certainly you wouldn't go this fast over it in most cases, but we hadn't, angled it to know where we were gonna land or how this was gonna work. But we had done it a few times at that point, generally uneventfully. Hadn't been that big of a deal. But Freddie had shaken loose the spare tire holder that hung underneath the car and done a few other things to the car that it was definitely not liking, but it was still going, but leaking some coolant. So I'm next to go, and I don't know how his jump's gone. All I have is a walkie-talkie, and they say, Ed, go. So I send it all the way. And I go as fast as that Maserati will go from our starting line, full throttle, burn out through first, second, and then jump in third. Anytime you jump a car, it feels like it's 10 times as higher as it actually was, but we were properly off the ground. And I landed really, really hard and really, really nose down. And so the car bounced really, really hard. I go around the next couple of turns and I stop. And I pull up to Freddie, and he is cringing at the amount of coolant that is just dumping out of the front of my car. And I'm like, God darn it, this makeup shot that we might have even been able to cut around without, but just made it look a little bit better. I have now destroyed my car. We knew we're not going to be able to find another Maserati radiator in this town of 400 people that happens to have this weird castle. And so I knew we're going to have to get back and do it, but we still have other shots that we want to get. And the next one is that they wanted a really, really good sliding shot, and I'd picked out a corner that literally every time down the driveway I had been full lock sideways on. But I now have to do it with a car that'll overheat if it runs for more than about 60 or 90 seconds. We stop, Freddie tries, doesn't do much, Tyler tries, doesn't do much, and then I am gonna try to do something in the short time that I can keep this car on before we pull it back down to the castle, and Jared and I have to try to figure out if the car can even be patched up in order to continue. And so everybody's a little bit frantic at this point because we don't really know how this is gonna fit in. Like, is the car gonna be fixable? Are we now going to a backup car? What are we gonna have to do? They don't really get any great shots. We're absolutely losing daylight. And so they're like, all right, Ed, send it. And so I go around the turn, and it's 2 turns that I could very easily connect. And so the first one, I just don't have enough speed because I didn't carry any speed in there. It's really a power slide around the first one, which honestly I don't do a very good job of. And so I don't get it terribly out. So I just kick it hard and switch it the other direction. And I way overcook it. And so I'm full, all the lock I've got, and I'm like, man, am I gonna hit that tree? Am I gonna hit that tree? And there's a row of these, 5-6 inch trees that I know I'm coming towards, and I'm like, I think I might get around it. I think I might get around it. I don't. I hit it. And so the way the Maserati bumper works, it bumps out in the middle. And honestly, if it had been straight across, and it missed the headlight, and it hit it totally sideways, and it just hit the front, you would have thought that nobody around there had ever seen a car accident before, because they are freaking out. But I mean, the car never turned off. I just pop it into neutral, look around, everything's still attached, nothing's too crazy. Of course, there's debris from the tree falling on the roof and hood at the moment. Okay, well, we'll just back up and turn around. And so I get out of the car to look at it, and well, darn it, yeah, it is quite a noticeable little indentation there. And that hasn't helped everything that was already broken underneath, because we were already hanging out the front under trays, oil catch, everything was bad. Now we have to get the car back and diagnose, but bigger issue than that is that we now don't know how to fit this into the story, because we were shooting stuff to go into day 1, but we were now through shooting of day 2. And obviously, in everything that we had just done with the wizard to inspect the cars as part of the storyline, the car wasn't banged up on the front. We had to figure out a way for the storyline to make sense, and certainly we were out trying to reshoot Ed sliding around turns in a Maserati. Doesn't really make sense for that storyline. We can't have AutoTempest challenge us to look better at what we did the day before. We end up creating the premise that gets shown at the end of episode 2 that I, after the inspections of the cars, race home because I want to outdo Freddie's jump in the Rolls Royce, and I want to do a better jump that we would then splice in. And in doing so, I lose it around the next turn because I bounce so hard and I've been going so fast. And so obviously in reality, they were 2 different issues. I went around the turns very safely after landing the jump, and then totally overcooked it trying to slide around a few turns after that. And so that's how the storyline got saved. But like I said, we don't do a very good job of writing a script for these series. We're just winging it and having an absolute blast. And so when something like this happens, really when anything happens, we spend every night re-engineering the way that the rest of the storyline is going to go. So in this circumstance, not only do we have to figure out if the car could be fixed, but then we had to go back and try to figure out how this is going to fit into the script. And I think it plays reasonably well that that's what happened. I mean, certainly it is what happened, but that's as much as we could salvage the truth into something that made sense chronologically in the story that we were trying to put together for the show. And so we pull it into the garage, and me and Jared start ripping things apart. And now, inevitably, we were already going to have to be fixing the radiator. And quite honestly, and Freddie will never accept that this is true, the accident didn't hurt anything. Everything that we had to get to was already going to be broken or already broken. And honestly, the accident just made it a lot easier, because rather than thinking about whether or not we needed to save this plastic part, they were just broken. And so we pulled them all off and built a big pile of things that we no longer needed. And Jared and I got the radiator out. And I'm turning wrenches, doing everything that I can. Certainly he's leading the way, but we get it out and find that there is at least a 6-inch crack along the lower corner near the lower mount of the radiator. And so that's where all the fluid's coming out clearly. And we're gonna have to try to epoxy this plastic radiator. Is it a good solution? No, but it was the only one that we had. Short of going to another shop and getting a radiator that would not work, that we'd have to redo all the piping and everything else to just hope that we could strap it to the hood of the car and make it work. This was a good option. So we went and got all the JB Weld we could find, all the wire ties, because all the mounts were broken, and we decided that we're gonna spend the night doing this. And so about every half hour, we would come back and re-epoxy a new layer to do everything that we could to give it as much strength as it could possibly have. And then again, we're putting it back in with a whole lot of other stuff out of the way, so it wasn't that big of a deal, and it held. You know, the next morning we fill it up with coolant and start the car, and it's not dripping. Now, it starts to leak throughout the day. We've got this extremely rigid patch that, as the radiator expands and flexes, it's inevitably going to stress, and it does start to seep. And so every night we would have to go back in and do it. But the next day, the car is perfectly drivable. And so we have a holiday obstacle course to do, and I've got to slide around a tree and go up and, blast around. And again, it works just fine. And so it was a tremendous amount of fun, not only to get the chance to jump and crash the car, but to fix it and for it all to fit in. And honestly, Mona the Maserati remained the most reliable car. Now, in the comments on episode 1, I came to learn that Mona, which was on the dedication plaque of this car, is actually a derogatory slang term in Italian for lady parts or an idiot. And so I don't know if that dedication plaque was put on in jest by its original owner or if it was actually built for someone named Mona, but Mona the Maserati was an absolutely perfect companion for Car Trek 3. So we had an absolute blast. We ended up getting it all the way through as everything it needed to do, not much further than that. And you'll see as you go through the end of Car Trek what ends up happening to Mona and all of the cars. But again, it was an awesome way to celebrate Christmas, albeit filmed in October. And I hope that everybody who's had the chance to watch it has thoroughly enjoyed Car Trek, or at least enjoyed it a small amount as much as we enjoyed making it, because we're going to keep doing it anyway. We're already planning Car Trek for 2021, but please go over to Freddie's channel now and watch Car Trek episodes 1 through 5 of Car Trek 3, and even go back and rewatch Car Trek 1 and Car Trek 2. But again, thank you so much to AutoTempest for making Car Trek possible and for being our sponsor this month at VINwiki. AutoTempest is a way that you can search all the major listing sites at the same time to find your dream car. Whether it's a piece of junk Maserati, a Lamborghini, or just a car that would actually get you wherever you want to go, AutoTempest is the best place to start your search. AutoTempest.com, all the cars, one search.